Another print disability, which makes reading, holding a book, or turning a page difficult or impossible. The content is copyrighted by the respective publishers. For more information, please visit us on the web at nfradioreading.org.
Hello, this is Laura, and for the next hour, I'll be reading from the May 31st issue of the New York Times Style section on the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service. Finally, a bookstore that sells mesh underwear. The book and fashion worlds have been flirting. At climax, they're making out. By Callie Holterman. On a recent Saturday afternoon, a storefront on East 4th Street in Manhattan emitted a mysterious pink glow. Vinyl film over the windows obscured its contents to passers-by. Customers left carrying parcels in sheer latex bags. It was not a sex shop, but another kind of place that might make you tingle. A bookstore. Inside Climax, a dealer of rare books and ephemera, a fashion design student wearing fringed boots flipped through a Vivienne Westwood monograph. Other shoppers, a musician, a stylist, a consultant, and her obedient boyfriend, browsed collections of work by Jürgen Teller and Martine Sims. The aluminum shelves were punctuated with neon plastic erasers, a collection of short stories by Mary Gateskill, assorted erotica, and a guide to cake decorating from the 1970s. What did these offerings, which cost anywhere from $4 to several $100s, have in common? I think it's a feeling, said Isabella Burley, 35, who is easy to spot among the stacks because her hair is the shade of Twizzlers. The one-time editor of Dazed magazine, she is now the owner of this tiny East Village shop and its sister store in London, where she grew up. Climax, she said, is meant to be a place where a first edition of a 1994 photo book by Nan Goldin and Nobuyoshi Araki, documenting youth subcultures in Tokyo, might brush up against a collection of Mark Newson's spaceshipy interior design. That sort of weird tension between things is more interesting to me than, oh, we only sell fashion books. Yet Burley's idiosyncratic taste has attracted a fashionable clientele. Alexa Chung and Paloma Elisar are regulars. The store has hosted book signings for designers, including Simone Rocha. In 2024, Climax released a $250 set of ruffled mesh underwear in collaboration with the brand Chopova Lowena that swiftly sold out. It's the latest brush between the fashion and literary worlds, which have been flirting for years now. Consider that Prada enlisted the author Otessa Moshfegh to write short stories for a campaign last year, or that the designer Anna Sui staged her fall 2024 runway show in the Rare Book Room at the Strand. There's also a breakthrough in the moment of obsession with broadcasting one's personal taste. The Gen Z girl who loves the Miu Miu show and buys everything thrifted. That's who's going to this shop and buying stuff, said Lauren Sherman, the host of the podcast Fashion People, and a fashion correspondent at Puck. Burley's vision for Climax, with its dose of sex appeal, is particularly of the moment, Sherman added. She's capturing what desire looks like right now. During a lull between customers, Burley slipped off a pair of furry Phoebe Philo slides and settled in on a butter yellow bench in the corner of the store. She wore a silver necklace with the name of her dog, a spindly whippet named Bambi. Like many book dealers, Burley started out as an obsessive collector. When she wasn't running Dazed, a role she assumed at age 24, or working on Helmut Lang and Acne Studios, she was trolling the internet for copies of Madame in a World of Fantasy, a female domination fetish magazine first printed in the 1970s, or hunting for a German periodical for rubber enthusiasts called Gum. She found their pages to be glamorous, sexy, bizarre. It was really just like, I need this. I don't know why, she said. Over about a decade, Burleigh's collection expanded to include photo books by Penny Slinger, Nigel Shafran, and Carrie Mae Weems. But it was not until the coronavirus pandemic that she had time to think about what to do with all of them. She had considered building a reference library or digital archive, but settled on an online bookshop. The name Climax came from a garment label featuring cartoonish red lips that she had seen several years earlier at a vintage clothing store in Manhattan. It was so confronting, but also so camp, she said. A bad time for the world turned out to be a pretty good time to buy and sell books. Climax appeared online in September 2020 with a stock of about 100 items, half of which sold the first day. Her living room, and eventually her spare bedroom too, were overtaken by merchandise. Burleigh does most of the buying for Climax herself, online and at secondhand bookstores scattered across the United States, Europe, and Japan. She is learning how to drive in part because she wants to venture to more remote places for buying trips. The sourcing most of the time happens at 3 a.m. in bed on my laptop, going down some crazy internet hole of an artist or someone I wasn't familiar with, she said. After a temporary takeover of the ground floor at the Sadie Coles Gallery in London in 2023, Climax opened permanent storefronts in the East Village in 2024 and the Clerkenwell neighborhood of London the next year. Climax's offerings have come to extend well beyond printed matter. This year, the store hosted a Valentine's Day event with the artist Leila Gohar, who designed stainless steel bookmarks for Climax shaped like kidney beans, and a signing for the release of a new book by the photographer Petra Collins. There is also a social media series, Under the Cover, which features celebrities and artists talking about their literary influences while browsing Climax's shelves. In one installment, Elisir, the model, holds up a copy of The Bluest Eye by Toni Morrison. I remember reading this book when I was in the 6th grade and being pretty disturbed, but it made a lot of sense, she said. All of this has added to Climax's cachet at a time when other bookstores in the city, High Valley and Dashwood Books, for example, have also attracted cult followings. It probably did not hurt that Timothée Chalamet recently visited Climax to browse with the director, Aiden Zamiri, and shared a picture from the store with his 21 million Instagram followers. He also bought a book about the graphic design of Japanese shopping bags. Stores like this are what make reading cool, collecting books cool, said Eva Niruri, the former creative director of Heaven by Marc Jacobs. The day I visited the store, she had come by to catch up with Burleigh, but could not resist picking up a colorful collection of Soichi Akoi's portraits of street style in Tokyo. Other visitors that afternoon took home books by Gary Indiana and Sofia Coppola. A handful who came in seemed mostly focused on the store's $185 cropped hoodies and Dayglow baby tees. One woman bought a yellow crop top that read "Dial C for Climax" for $100 and wore it out of the store. Was there any concern that the book part of the bookstore risked being overshadowed as Climax's cultural footprint grew? Burleigh cringes over words like merch and content, but she increasingly thinks of Climax as a brand, in addition to a place to buy first edition hardcovers. The t-shirts and TikToks do seem to be helping to get customers in the door, where they might buy a keychain, and also might find themselves flipping through a 1997 book of sketches by the artist Rita Ackerman. Burley was speaking about that dynamic when a young woman wearing oversized Chanel eyeglasses came into the store and made a beeline for the register. "I'm looking for a very specific book," she said. I mog, he mogs, you mog, we all mog. The term can mean outdoing oneself or others, and it has jumped far from its incel chat room origins. Not oranges, that's different. Where did it come from? By Nicole Stock. When Monica Sands, 24, first heard the word mog, she had a startling realization. She had reached linguistic obsolescence. The three-letter word, along with its various permutations, mogging, mogged, getting out mogged, has become a way to describe one person outshining another, primarily used by Gen Alpha. I actually heard it from my boyfriend's 15-year-old brother, and I was like, oh my God, what are they talking about? Like, what does this mean? Am I getting old? Sands said, adding, I just don't know the lingo anymore. While the term has existed for decades, it has taken on a new life on social media and among the younger generations, who typically use it to describe outdoing oneself or others, usually in a joking manner. The gold medal Olympic figure skater, Alyssa Liu, once said her main goal at competition was simply to mog. The political commentator Hassan Piker posted on Instagram that he got absolutely fame-mogged by real celebrities at an Oscars party. Arnold Schwarzenegger even joined in when he posted a compilation of his bodybuilding clips on X, writing, "Someone just tried to explain this new trend, fame-mogging, to me." As the term has grown more popular broadly, its usage has also widened. "You can mog absolutely anything," said Pierre Paul, 28, whose recent video about the roots of the term and its more colorful uses gained traction on TikTok. Einstein developed the theory of relativity, Paul says in the video. We can effectively say that he mogged physics and mathematics. But most often, he said, it was used as a means of insulting someone's appearance by comparing one person to another. That makes sense given the term's roots in the acronym AMOG, or Alpha Male of the Group, said Adam Alexic, a linguist and influencer who posts as @entomologynerd on social media. There's no precise definition, but the original term was typically deployed to demean another person by way of perceived superior attractiveness. By the mid-2010s, mogging was turning up in forums dedicated to the black pill philosophy, Alexic said. The phrase, a modified metaphor borrowed from The Matrix, describes a nihilistic outlook among incels about their perceived sexual rejection by women. But in the last decade, it spilled out of the online ecosystem of pickup artists, looks maxers, and men promoting incel culture and into more mainstream platforms such as X, Instagram, and TikTok. Along the way, the meaning has been sanitized. It's sort of been semantically bleached, Alexic said, adding, it's lost a lot of the overt connotation. By the time Juliana Freed, 30, encountered the word at the start of this year, she had a different interpretation of its meaning. I understood mogging as just like looking sexy, Freed, 30, said, and then more correctly understood it as like out-sexying someone else. Her understanding of the term changed after seeing TikTok videos posted by Clavicular, the influencer whose real name is Braden Peters, and who has become a de facto face of the term. He is also deeply associated with looks maxing, an adjacent concept that holds male attractiveness as the key to success. So much of what I know about this, like totally against my will, Freed joked. Many now also use it ironically distancing themselves from its origins. It could be used in the context of looks, style, outshining somebody in anything, said Matthew Klein, 23, who has used the word satirically on TikTok. In February, he posted a video that amassed millions of views in which he described a viral moment during which Clavicular appeared to be mocked by a student at Arizona State University as a significant historical event. The word is perhaps most used by Gen Alpha, Alexic said, though Gen Z has picked it up too. The people who are most willing to adopt new language are typically middle schoolers who are extremely flexible in their sense of self, he said. And they're trying to build their identities and differentiate themselves from adults and build a shared kind of framework for themselves. He added that they adopted vocabulary from online streamers. Paula Simoni, a 25-year-old bartender in Miami, said that she used the phrase with her 9, 10, and 11-year-old nieces to mixed reception. To them, she said, I'm like the cringy aunt. Simone learned about the term earlier this year when a trend on TikTok involved users showing pictures of people who are out mogging them. She posted a TikTok that zoomed out on a photo of her and her sisters, revealing additional people as the perspective expands. The photo now has more than 3 million views. And yet, she said, one of the sisters pictured, who is not on TikTok, still doesn't know what mogging means. You are listening to a reading of articles and features from the New York Times Style section on the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service. Miles Davis, A Visual Dictionary. Fast cars, huge shades, and surprisingly, any old trumpet. These are the things that made Miles, Miles. Compiled by Louis Lucero II. Who's actually cool? Empirically, undeniably, stand the test of time, cool. James Dean and James Bonds all have a reasonable claim. So do David Bowie and Marvin Gaye, Lauryn Hill and Kate Moss, Grace Jones and Nina Simone, Paul Newman, and Yohei Yamamoto. If you detect a whiff of recency bias, well, cool is decidedly 20th century invention. And one man was not just its father, but announced the birth. Miles Davis, the jazz legend and style innovator who would have turned 100 this month, remains for many people the preeminent avatar of cool. And while Davis's greatest legacy is musical, he also cut a distinctive image over the course of his 5-decade career. Davis died of pneumonia in 1991 at 65. His style shifted alongside his sound, but he had his touchstones, face-obscuring sunglasses and ticket magnet sports cars among them. Ahead of Davis's centennial on May 26, writers from the Styles desk reflected on specific elements of the trumpeter's public image that made him a genius of cool. His trumpet. He was Miles on any instrument. Miles Davis was not someone who would have been considered a gearhead, said Billy Buss, an associate professor in the brass department at the Berklee College of Music in Boston. Davis did not often obsess over his equipment. Rather, the trumpet was merely a vessel for his artistic expression, Buss said. And Davis would play whatever instrument allowed him to do that. These days, everybody is looking for, what's the coolest mouthpiece? What brand is going to help me be a better trumpet player? Buss said. Miles Davis was not about that. It was very much, I am a trumpet player, and I am an artist, and this is my sound, and I am going to sound like Miles on any instrument. For much of his career, that instrument was a Martin Committee trumpet, along with an accessory that became a hallmark, a stemless Harmon mute, which, as Ian Carr wrote in his biography of Davis, was used to express the most delicate nuances of feeling with a timbre that was round and full. At the time that Davis was developing his sound in the 1950s, Jazz was all about higher, louder, faster forms of music, Buss said. But Davis was no follower, and his more subdued style was distinct. In a 1989 interview, Davis said he liked playing the trumpet with a mute because it sounds human, sounds like a voice. The result was that his music was haunted by a sort of cool lyricism. The Martin Band Instrument Company went out of business in 2008, but some of Davis's trumpets are still kicking around. In March, one of his custom-made Martin committees, which was made around 1980 and featured a black lacquered finish and gold-plated hardware, went to auction. It sold for more than $1.6 million. His sunglasses, framing the face of cool. No accessory was assured Davis' reputation, as the dark prince of jazz quite like his sunglasses did. Whether Davis was playing the horn in his hard bop era or his fusion era, his bold and unsubtle frames added an impossibly cool accent to his style. He favored oversize and avant-garde shades, sometimes large enough to resemble goggles, from designers like Philippe Chevalier and Jean-Paul Gaultier, and brands like Vunart. And he paired them with his dashikis, Issey Miyake ensembles, and Brooks Brothers suits. In his clean-cut 1950s mode, Davis wore classics like Ray-Ban Wayfarers as he struck out in New York playing clubs like Birdland and Cafe Bohemia. As his jazz explorations traveled into rock and fusion and his style grew groovier, he embraced Chevalier frames as his signature, wearing bug-eyed tortoiseshell designs and a pair that resembled ski goggles. Blowing through changes at the Newport Jazz Festival in 1969, he wore bulbous red acetate frames. At the Zenith Concert Hall in Paris in 1986, he donned futuristic Porsche-designed shield glasses. As Davis's stature grew into that of an American cultural icon, his sunglasses also became something of a mask for him, a shield from the harsh glare of his fame. When television hosts like Dick Cavett interviewed him about his life as a jazz legend, he answered questions simply, raspily, and profoundly from behind his shades. Davis was in poor health in 1991 when he performed one of his last big concerts at the Jazz Avian Festival in Paris, in France. Playing a red trumpet and wearing welder goggle-like black sunglasses, he blew through tunes like Human Nature and Hannibal. He died just 3 months later. But to everyone in the crowd that night, jazz's dark prince had unquestionably been summoned. His sports cars, a taste for the faster things in life. For Davis, personal transportation needed to meet 2 requirements. It had to be flashy, and it had to be fast. The first sports car Davis bought when he found success in music, a Mercedes-Benz 190 SL, hit the former mark, but not the latter. So in the early 1960s, he traded the Mercedes for a white Ferrari 250 GT California Spider, the beginning of his lifelong obsession with Italian supercars. Davis drove his Ferraris to gigs daily, often at high speeds, sometimes high on cocaine. But more than their horsepower as a black man, he appreciated exotic cars as markers of success and spectacle. In his autobiography, Davis described the scene he created when he and his first wife, Frances Taylor, a dancer, pulled up in their white Ferrari convertible. Man, it was something. People stopping and looking with their mouths hanging open and everything. When he returned to live performing in 1981, after years of health struggles, Davis bought a canary yellow Ferrari 308 GTSI and drove it from New York to a gig in Boston. "I wanted everyone to see me arriving to work in my new Ferrari," he wrote. "I wanted them to know that I was really back." Davis encountered speed bumps along the way. In 1972, he broke both legs when he crashed his lime green Lamborghini Miura, on the West Side Highway in Upper Manhattan, and he was constantly harassed by police officers who couldn't reconcile the high-end sports car with the black man behind the wheel. By the time he owned his last Ferrari, the same model as the one featured on the TV show Miami Vice, he had come up with preventative measures. I had my lawyer call him up and say, "Miles has just bought a Testarossa and it's gray. He just thought you'd like to know that," Davis told 60 Minutes in 1989. The drivers who were dusted at red lights could identify the musician by his vanity plates, MILES 22. His hair. The only constant was the color. Davis's musical legacy is one of evolution, and his style was just as mercurial. For practically every new iteration of his music, there came a different image. In the 1950s, around the time he released one of the most influential records of his career, Birth of the Cool, Davis wore his hair in its natural state and kept it closely cropped. By the 1960s, already established in the world of jazz, there was a subtle but poignant change in his hairstyle. At the 1964 Monterey Jazz Festival, his short hair appeared smoothed out, as if it had been chemically straightened with a relaxer. The look was reminiscent of a conch, a hairstyle that was popular with African American men starting in the 1940s, but was by then on its way out. As the hippie style of fringe, denim, and wild hair took hold in the 1970s, Davis's music took a turn for the looser as well. On the cover of Isle of Wight, released in 1971, he wears his hair in an afro. The style signified a pride in blackness and the freedom not to conform. In the 1980s, the chameleonic Davis transformed yet again, shifting his look to incorporate color block, lame, nylon, and jackets with broad shoulders. His hair appeared taller, straightened, softly curled, or creeping around his face and down his neck. As a guest on the Dick Cavett Show in 1989, he wore micro braids, his receding hairline plainly visible. At the 1990 Chicago Jazz Festival, in what would be one of his last performances before he died in 1991, he wore what appeared to be a wig in the soft curl style, one that gave him the appearance of a full head of hair, the picture of follicular vitality. It was the final progression of his ever-changing image. His downtown raiment, a style chameleon's natural habit. His fashion eras are many and well studied. There were the early prep looks that the author Jason Jules examined in his book Black Ivy. There were the slick European suits the trumpeter favored during his Paris sojourn. There would be further mutations, Davis the fashion plate having been as resistant to pigeonholing as was Davis the musician. Yet, if one style era had burned itself into the mind's eye, it is the Davis of Bitches Brew. Those were the snakeskin years of 1969 and 1970. Those were the years of skin-tight studded jeans from the leather wizard Hernando of Greenwich Village, and of knee-high lace-up boots imported from Sweden and sold from a basement atelier in the crafty seamen on West 10th Street. Those were the years of torso-hugging jerseys and fringed suedes devised for Davis by the then unknown designer Stephen Burrows and his buddy, Bobby Burslow. Those were the years when hip New Yorkers flocked to Andrea Aronoff's seminal East Village boutique Dakota Transit for shirts made from block print Indian cottons or custom items like the floor-length patchwork snakeskin cape that Aronoff designed specifically for Davis. That those were also the Betty Davis years is a fact that Davis tends to overlook. And that is a pity, since the period during which Miles Davis was married to the former Betty Mabry proved profound in its influence not only in his image, but also on his music. Would Bitches Brew have been the musical monument it became if not for Betty Davis? Who can say? Yet it is worth remembering that it was Betty who brought Miles into unfamiliar spheres, bringing him into both her coterie and creative gay New Yorkers and the adjacent musical worlds of psychedelic rock and funk. It was Betty, after all, who introduced Miles to Jimi Hendrix, the music, and the man. Pause a minute to reflect on that. You are listening to a reading of articles and features from the New York Times Style section on the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service. What's Your Mom Aesthetic? Motherhood has become just another vibe to brand, by Jessica Roy. To be an expectant parent is to be confronted with an endless series of decisions. Breast milk or formula? Should the baby sleep in our room or on her own? What kind of stroller should we buy? Now, in addition to all of the practical considerations that go into preparing for a newborn, there's one that's slightly more philosophical. What kind of parent do I want to be on the internet? In a world where some babies have Instagram handles before they're even born, deciding how you want to portray yourself as a parent online has become, for some, almost as important as parenting itself. On TikTok, content creators have been coining terms for their different approaches, turning motherhood into one more aesthetic to brand, while also giving themselves a creative escape from the drudgery of parenthood. A butter mom, for instance, rejects diet culture and aims to curate a vibrant 90s-style life for her children, complete with analog toys and primary colors. A cozy mom might coordinate sweater sets with her newborn and prioritize Montessori-style practical play. Destiny Carrion, a 26-year-old mother of 2 young daughters, often posts videos on her TikTok page meant to represent her parenting aesthetic, which she describes as whimsical. I find it beneficial for moms, especially new moms, to lead this journey with an aesthetic in mind, said Carrion, who lives in Las Vegas. It's easy to get lost in the world of pediatrician appointments, bedtimes, soccer games. Somewhere along there, you can lose your style and run on autopilot and let the magic of motherhood fade a little. Carrion said she found plenty of parenting aesthetic inspiration on TikTok, where her For You page is filled with content advertising styles like Tuscan Mom and Clean Girl Mom. Perhaps the best known is the Sad Beige Mom. In 2022, Haley DeRoche, a writer and librarian, was looking online for a set of stacking cups to buy for a friend's baby shower when she noticed something strange. They were all in shades of beige and incredibly monochrome, DeRoche said. But the thing that really tipped it over the top for me was that the marketing images that went with them were these children just kind of looking at the cups. No joy. There was no laughter. They were just staring somberly at them. DeRoche surmised that the images were meant to suggest that the idea that your child will be wise beyond their years if they play with this toy, she said, but the way it translated was they just looked really sad. DeRoche decided to create a TikTok account dedicated to the phenomenon, which she coined Sad Beige, and began creating videos satirizing the aesthetic, often using a Werner Herzog impression. Her videos took off online, and she eventually parlayed them into a book. Dress Your Baby in Sage and Taupe, a handbook for the sad beige parent. For DeRoche, who has 2 children of her own, parenting aesthetics have to do with telegraphing class and beliefs. It's virtue signaling, essentially who you are as a parent, DeRoche said. She said she has observed the ways marketing could be wielded against parents who are desperate to do everything right, and let the world know that you're buying the right things, subscribing to the right curricula, and ways of rearing a child. And it's all tied to class. Despite being curated for digital consumption, Most of these trends are united by a nostalgia for a pre-internet childhood, embraced both by millennials who grew up before iPads and by Gen Z parents who have never known a world without cell phones. The parenting aesthetics that break through online are largely those that embrace creative outdoor play and are unburdened by the concept of screen time. According to DeRoche, at the heart of the parenting aesthetic debate is also a desire for control over something, anything related to parenting a child. I think parenthood drops people into a place where you suddenly lose control, she said. You can have your entire life very much under control, and then this baby arrives, and suddenly you could have read 800 books and you still don't know what you're doing. For Kyle Chayka, a staff writer at The New Yorker and a new father who described his parenting aesthetic as oatmeal baby, there is also something aspirational about the way we dress and present babies. Though new parents may suddenly have less time to dedicate to their own personal appearances, and little energy to do anything with their free time but mindlessly scroll social media, at least they can dress their babies in clean, minimalist outfits and hand them a tasteful beige block set instead of plopping them in front of a screen. Babies are representatives of our personal tastes. Since they can't make any decisions for themselves, he said, I think we outfit them with the things we aspire to, the way people also fancy up their dogs. Do I look ridiculous carrying 2 phones? Carrying multiple cell phones, whether for cybersecurity or work-life balance, come with some quirks and style challenges. By Gabriella Gershenson. Anyone walking down the street in the 90s would not have been surprised to see a passerby toggling between a couple of pagers at once, and maybe retrieving an early flip phone or Discman from a Kate Spade purse. But after years of progressive slimming down and merging our electronics into single devices that do everything, clunky seems to be back. The screens are bigger, the headphones are more obtrusive, and crucially, there are 2 or even 3 phones on hand. On a recent afternoon, Rachel Bahar, 37, an event planner from Brooklyn, clutched a double-decker of iPhones in one hand while rushing through the 14th and 18th Avenue subway station. Most days, when I'm running around like you saw me, I have both, she said, because I'm life on one, mom of 2, work on the other, and they all need me all the time. It may seem counterintuitive, but many people who carry 2 cell phones believe it's the healthier choice. Having one for business and one for everything else allows for clearer boundaries between work and life. At the end of the day, if you're not a doctor and you're not saving lives, I think that you should shut off from work every once in a while, Bahar said. According to a survey by Vorhaus Advisors, a research and consulting firm that specializes in media, the number of people in the United States who reported owning 2 smartphones increased to 18% in 2025 from 15% in 2024. Eva Galperin, director of cybersecurity at the Electronic Frontier Foundation, a digital rights advocacy group, said there had been a collapse between personal and work life in the pandemic years, leading to a growing need for compartmentalization that has manifested in part with a second phone. This is both good for employees, for work-life balance, but also the way in which it protects the employer from seeing all kinds of things about your personal life they don't want to, said Galperin. Using one device for everything came with a series of privacy and security trade-offs, she said. Corporations benefit from having employees at work on phones and devices that their IT department and their security department can try to keep safe and secure because they control them. This isn't a brand new phenomenon. In the 2015 hit 2 Phones by Kevin Gates, the rapper sings about having multiple cell phones to keep areas of his life separate. I got 2 phones, one for the plug and one for the load, he sings. I got 2 phones, one for women and one for the doe, though I think I need 2 more. In a 2024 interview, he clarified that the song was actually about having 6 phones, not 2. The polyphone life comes with the inconvenience of having to actually carry them. Everyone handles it a bit differently. There are the stackers. That's omnipresent, said Kevin O'Leary, an investor on Shark Tank, referring to his 3 phones with reading glasses on top, which he arranges in a neat pile in front of him, as if he's, say, out at a restaurant. It doesn't look that onerous, just sitting there. Does he find carrying 3 phones bulky? No, he said. I also travel with 3 laptops and an iPad. Then there are the pocket stuffers. Cole Van Gelder, 28, an associate at a real estate investment firm, had both of his phones on a table at Chelsea Market, where he and his mother were having lunch. When he's on the move, he slips them into the pockets of his Lululemon chinos. I usually have this one in my right pocket and this one in my left pocket, Van Gelder said, gesturing to each phone. Rocky Cedino, 38, was walking down Church Street in Lower Manhattan, holding one cell phone in his hand while the outline of a second was visible in the front pouch of his hoodie. For him, pants are off limits when it comes to phone storage. I don't like it anywhere in my lower pockets, Cedino said, gesturing below his waist. Why? Radiation. According to scientists, there is no proof that the type of radiation emitted from a cell phone is dangerous. Multi-phone use can create opportunities for peacocking. Chaudhry Mohammed Karman, 47, an entrepreneur with business in Dubai, New York, Singapore, and Pakistan, stood in front of an office building while holding 2 phones and a battery bank, fanned out like playing cards in one hand. He insisted that it was comfortable. Don't try it at home. I've identified many problems that using a phone can cause, Dr. Nick Maroldi, a certified hand therapist at the Hospital for Special Surgery in White Plains, New York, said in an interview. Having 2 cell phones, Maroldi said, increases the risk for faulty mechanics and bad ergonomics. And I think it overemphasizes some of our overuse patterns. The most common conditions he sees from cell phone overuse are tendinitis, trigger fingers, and carpal tunnel syndrome. Hands-free accessories like a cross-body strap that attaches directly to one's phone case may help with organization and diminish the need to grip, but they've been met with mixed reviews. Vanessa Friedman, the fashion director at the New York Times, where some employees have second phones, wrote in a message, "This is just a fancier version of the clip-on pager, and it is fooling no one." Jeff Amerhain, 55, of Portland, Oregon, has been selling handmade leather goods through his Etsy store since 2011. His bestseller, which he first introduced in 2013, is a double cell phone case fashioned from Italian vegetable-tanned cowhide that protects the phones from getting scratched or schmutzy. He has sold nearly 3,000 to date. So many people have reached out to me personally after getting their case and just saying like, wow, this makes my life so much easier, Amerhain said in an interview. For the hyper-efficient, having more than one cell phone can feel like the closest thing to cloning itself. O'Leary aspires to be on 2 phones simultaneously in 2 separate meetings, each broadcast into a different ear by 2 earpieces. He swears by the Starkey, a sophisticated Bluetooth listening device that when tucked into the ear is almost invisible. In fact, an earpiece was dictating incoming text messages to O'Leary while we talked. That's how we work on a laptop, O'Leary said. You've got the spreadsheet open, you've got the word processor open, and you've got the text messages open, and you're just moving between them. Why not do that with your phones? You can. It's not that hard. You are listening to a reading of articles and features from the New York Times Style section on the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service. Modern Love. He wanted to kiss 1,000,000 times. Could we do it? My optimistic, romantic husband never would have guessed what would happen to us. By Denise Delany. When we were newlyweds, my husband suggested we launch the Million Kisses Club. I was charmed, but doubtful. I hadn't been a member of a club since I fled the Brownies at age 8, having no interest in flying up to the Girl Scouts with their paramilitary sashes and enforced camaraderie. I was not much of a joiner, it turned out. A club? I said. For kissing? Yup. For 1 million kisses, you and me. He was pretty irresistible when he suggested this. 1 million? I looked at my guy. Have you done the math? Not in our lifetime. We were in bed on one of those drowsy, careless Sunday mornings, the ease of which, it seems, is reserved for the very young or the newly in love, often hard to resurrect in later years of life when everything becomes such a busy place. So, he asked, how many times do you think we've kissed already? My husband was not interested in that other notch on the belt, the running total that men our age more frequently bragged about. He wasn't that guy who kept a tally of partners or a little black book rating his sexual exploits. No, he was talking about kisses, and kisses of all kinds. A smooch on the lips, a peck on the cheek, an air kiss, a French kiss, a gentle kiss to a fevered brow, a yearning goodbye kiss at the departure gate, and a swing you in the air you're finally here kiss at arrivals. And, of course, he was also talking about the remember them forever kisses. Yeah, my husband meant those deep, swooning kisses too. The ones that slay you with desire. Those back-bending, unstoppable kisses portrayed in European noir films and the most ardent love stories. Maybe do the math, wet blanket me. Do the math? He looked at me, eyebrows raised. The math, I said. The space-time continuum, call it what you want, 1 million, that's a lot of kisses. Let's say we kiss, 20 times a day. That adds up pretty quickly. His eyes were hopeful. I sighed, found a calculator, and punched in some numbers. Good thing you're so good-looking, I said as I showed him the total. If we kiss 20 times a day, it will take us 109.6 years to reach 1 million. Okay, he said, undeterred. How about 50 kisses a day? I typed in the numbers. Better, I said. That's only 54.8 years. And 100 kisses a day? I calculated. Down to 27.4 years. Then no problem, he said. We've got a few good decades in front of us. My husband came from Denmark, one of those countries with poppy-dotted fields, a robust social safety net, and a sky-high happiness rating. His sunny upbringing and temperament were a world away from my gloomier homeland, northern New Jersey. I was an independent, overthinking sort of person, reared on the notion that I would need to make my own way as best I could. That life would be more sour than sweet. When we first met, he launched a campaign to indoctrinate me with his optimism. Our toaster wasn't broken, just temperamental. The endless torrential rains, a lucky jump start on a vibrant spring. And landing in a new country almost broke? An excellent adventure. I wanted to believe in the world he tried to recruit me into, but given my own temperament and upbringing, it was a hard sell. His positivity seemed sanitized, as if he were naive to the hard work of being a person. So I, in turn, tried to yank him into my wariness. Our cranky toaster? An electrical fire waiting to happen. That downpour? A soggy basement to mop up. And always, the axe of bad luck poised to fall at any moment, severing our happiness. Optimist meets pessimist. They fall in love, and though appreciating the differences that attract them, attempt to convert the other to their team. Then he floated the notion of the Million Kisses Club. So seductive, such a lovely fantasy. I finally surrendered to his romantic heart. Despite my initial hesitation, the first chapter of the Million Kisses Club was founded, an exclusive society for just us two. We sheltered in our animal bubble, lulled by the time and expansiveness afforded by youth. But we never made it to 1 million kisses, not even close. For not only is 100 daily kisses a Herculean, lip-chapping quantity of smooches, it turns out we ran out of time. Cancer came at him like a hand from the grave in a horror film, gripped him hard, and did not let go until he was dragged under. He was dead at 34. We had only been together for 10 years. The Million Kisses Club disbanded unceremoniously, buried with its founding member and his poetic soul. A few years later, I fell in love again and wed again. And again I chose a man so different from me that some days our marriage felt like a tango of negotiation. Bring on the children and the dogs and the ineffable churn of life, and the Million Kisses Club was forgotten, buried under a mountain of domestic detritus. The deadlines and the dead lawns, the DMV, the SATs, the contractors gone missing, and the teens gone wild. If there was a faint whisper from the Million Kisses Club, I was too preoccupied to hear it. I'm a serious person. I know life is serious business. With my first husband's death, my cosmology had shifted even more towards the wary. I lived with the slow drumbeat of worry. How can we keep anyone safe in a precarious and increasingly insane world? Like most people, my family and I got kicked around a bit. Illness knocked, parents died, work stalled, friends suffered. The planet seemed to spin haphazardly, throwing all of us into tumult. Then my grandson was born. By this point, the busyness of life had ebbed. Within a renewed spaciousness, the whisper of the Million Kisses Club grew too loud to ignore. My grandson allowed me to time travel back to a circle of two. There is an uncrowdedness in the bond with an infant that is very much like falling in love. The world felt reborn. So my internal cosmology shifted once again. I embraced hopefulness as I never had before. Perhaps this is the generational tug, a pat on the back for a job well done. We did our part in keeping the human species chugging along. Or is it the simple joy grandparents so often cavil about? A big new love that finds us somewhere near the end, after life has hammered us or coddled us, and deposited us into our last chapter. My grandson is still too young to apply to the Million Kisses Club, and he has yet to give his consent, what with being pre-verbal and all. But if my daughter hands him to me when he's fussing, the surefire solution is to hold him on my lap and place dozens of tiny kisses on the soft side of his cheek right below his left ear. That is his sweet spot. He will sit happily for long stretches, eyelids fluttering, leaning into me. I hope it will be at least a little while before he outgrows these kisses. Though he is very young, I am not. Our years of overlap will not measure in decades. We do not have that much time to rack up a record-setting number of kisses between us. The Million Kisses Club goal post seems to recede once again further into the distance. Then, just the other day, holding my grandson's baby fat hand in my own wrinkled, freckled one, it struck me. There is no reason the million kisses need to be shared with only one another. How silly, how miserly, to have such a mono-kissing rule for the club. I will not receive 1 million kisses from this little boy or from any other single person in my life. The old pesky space-time continuum again. Yet if I add them up from all the years on on planet Earth with the hope of a few more, I will have shared many, many kisses with all the people I have loved and who have loved me back. And while there is no security or guarantee of who will fall next and who will remain standing, while we are here, we can all be in the club together. And that is more than enough. You've been listening to a reading of articles and features from the May 31st issue of the New York Times Style section. Your reader has been Laura. Thank you for listening.
Coming up next in the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service, we have the USA Today. Following that at 2 o'clock is episode number 8 of 1929 by Andrew Ross Sorkin. Stay with us for these readings and more. You're listening to the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service, broadcasting daily readings 24 hours a day of newspapers, magazines, and books to area people who are blind or have a print disability, who are provided reading radios. Radio Reading's broadcast signal is provided at no charge by WNED. Radio Reading Studios are at 1199 Harlem Road in Cheektowaga, between William and Clinton Streets. Radio Reading's website is nfradioreading.org. For more information on the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service, call us at 716-821-5555.
Hello, the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service now presents a reading of articles and features from the USA Today for Wednesday, June 3rd, 2026. Your reader for this hour. Hello, the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service now presents